go and forget the popcorn.
I was busy buying a sonic screwdriver.
So this is where you all have been.
I've been hiding from you.
Yeah, well that's nice. We got a show to do.
Yeah, but we all have to watch the 50th anniversary episode of Doctor Who.
Doctor what?
Doctor Who.
What? We have to show you Doctor Who.
Even I could tolerate watching Doctor Who with you.
But we've got the show.
Maybe we can do the show and watch Doctor Who at the same time?
To the Batmobile. Let's go. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed. Roger. Ready to move out.
Look, guys, it's getting late. We still got a show to do.
But Doctor Who.
So you guys go. You go first all the time anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, alright.
Hey, Mitch, grab the popcorn while you're out.
Nope!
Oh wait, don't leave me alone with him!
Hey, you said it. News and views.
Doctor Who has a prolific history of Christmas specials, so I'm sure you can understand the import of having a Christmas episode also be a two-part season finale, as well as David Tennant's last episode as the Hot Doctor, between Goofy Child Doctor and Scary Spice. The two-parter ends the 2009 season of Doctor Who, and makes no sense if you haven't watched at least the previous season, maybe every episode since 2005. It features the Master, the Doctor's arch-nemesis who died but is resurrected, and since this is a Christmas episode, that draws all sorts of uncomfortable parallels. Now, there are two intertwining plots in this special. The first is about the Master using conveniently placed alien technology to turn all of humanity into carbon copies of himself. He does this because he's kind of a narcissist, and he calls this new race the Master Race.
Obviously, he doesn't have a publisher.
But the second reason he does this is because he has a drumbeat in his head that he's had since he was 8 years old, and it makes him kind of nutty. This drumbeat was never explained until this reason, when they clarify that it's actually designed to break the show's continuity. The end of time represents the best and worst that the Doctor Who revamp has to offer. There's a fair amount of soul-searching and heart from the Doctor, and this episode, like all episodes, shows that the Doctor is a hero despite impossible odds. He sticks to his moral code. He does cool things. He's always the smartest one in the room. And this episode shows that even though he's functionally immortal, he's still afraid of death.
He's still relatable, like all other non-humans.
But right now, let's learn you kids some vocabulary. Say it with me. Deus ex machina. Literally, God in a box. This is a concept where lazy show writers resolve major problems using something that was never introduced before. It just shows up and solves the problem. Doctor Who is ripe with these, especially since the sonic screwdriver is basically Deus Ex Machina light, able to solve all problems in an instant. And don't get me started on the fact that it doesn't work on wood. He's not Golden Age Green Lantern or anything.
Just made a really good comic book reference, didn't you?
But the worst offender ever is this glove. Worn by the character whose presence doesn't make sense according to the show's own rules, and I could make a whole segment based just on that. This item apparently has the power to reverse an entire species' genetic code. So it's kind of stupid. Basically, the major rule about Doctor Who is that if you're not a loyal follower, you're only going to vaguely understand that something heroic is happening. But if you start asking, who's this guy, what's he doing, and how can he do that, that's how you get sucked into the cult. It's similar to Game of Thrones and other long-running syndicated TV series, in that the significance is based on the history that the viewer experiences alongside the characters. So yeah, you have to watch it from the beginning, or at least from 2005, which is sort of like the New Testament of Doctor Who. Why do they keep doing that?
So here's a mini tech war that doesn't always have to do with gaming, but we should still talk about. Microsoft versus Apple. Now, we all know Apple keeps suing Samsung over their phones being too similar, but did you know that they even sued Steve Jobs at one point?
It's genius.
Well, we all know how it worked out in the end. Apple acquired his new company and killed him. That's right, working at Apple literally killed him. I'm just playing here. But yes, he really furthered tech and made Apple not have to rely on lawsuits for their income.
Oh, and that's why the iPhone 5 came out with just an extra row of buttons.
At the beginning of the computer game era, most of the games were text-based. The West didn't just use the tech for more graphical games. Way back in the day, Japanese computers had a higher resolution to accommodate Japanese text. This allowed for better, more detailed graphics.
And we were just left out in the cold.
So let's talk about Macintosh. Games started to be released for Mac in 1984 with Puzzle, later renamed Jigsaw. Most games for it were developed right alongside the PC version. A few games like Myst, that was released in 1993, were created on Mac first, then later ported to Windows. Pathways into Darkness was another one, and that game is what inspired Halo. In 1987, the first sound cards started appearing, and PC became cheaper than the Apple II or the Commodore 64 for gaming. PC became the main computer of choice. Some notable games are Dark Castle and Microsoft Flight Simulator in 1986, and SimCity that actually came out in 1989.
I like Doctor Who, and I like games. And games that are based on franchises, so-called licensed games, have been the black spot on the otherwise pure dainty palm of the gaming industry for some time. Now, it hasn't always been like this. Licensed games took off during the Super Nintendo era, with a special thanks to Star Wars and Disney for consistently pumping out some of the best games of that age. But it was easier to make games back then. Most of them were 2D side-scrollers that nowadays anyone on Newgrounds can and has been pumping out like candy. It wasn't much of an investment to make Aladdin for the SNES, for example, and major companies with lots of experience like Capcom were more than happy to make a decent game out of the source material. For Doctor Who and the Eternity Clock, time is ironically not on the Doctor's side. Budgets for franchise games have not increased much since the Super Nintendo days, which means small, inexperienced companies are picking up the easy money attached to the franchise name so that they can get the budget to make the game they want to make. Then they're contractually obligated to change the game they wanted to make so it fits within the franchise they just bought into.
No one wins.
And this segues us flawlessly into Doctor Who, The Eternity Clock. Little-known indie company Supermassive Games pushed this one out. What they've created, in the simplest sense, is a 2D puzzle platforming game not entirely dissimilar from the licensed games of old. Unfortunately, Eternity Clock doesn't have the same flow or style we saw in those dated classics. The controls are clunky and robotic, with a slight but noticeable lag time preceding every action. If you think that's not annoying, then imagine walking, but every time you go to take a step, first you have to think about it really hard. The puzzles in this game are just okay, really. They're not especially difficult, but they're put on short time limits of just a few seconds as an artificial means of ramping up tension, when really all it does is cause you to fail every first attempt at each puzzle and start again from the beginning of the section, so very quickly the frustrations mount. The only noteworthy part of this game comes from Matt Smith and Alex Kingston's contractual obligations to do the voice acting for the 11th Doctor and River's song. They managed to add a tad of flair and humanity, or at least the proper inflection, even though the game only has PS2 graphics and can't really keep up with proper acting or anything that remotely looks like human movement. See for yourself.
Now, look, I know that navigating a temporal maelstrom is less than ideal, but if you could just calm down about it, be like that then. Okay, here's the thing. If you stay in one piece and get me down to Earth, in return, I'll figure this out, stop the time storm, problem solved. Everyone happy? The whole planet.
The reading's going wild. The strain on the TARDIS is enormous. Hang in there, old girl. Why is the TARDIS landed here? What's so special about it? Oh, and that thing always blows up on Tuesdays. I need to get outside, figure out what's causing the time storm.
The Eternity Clock absolutely reeks of being a budget project. Weak graphics, sloppy controls, and puzzles that are frankly no fun means that this game is best set on a collector's shelf. If you absolutely need to be wrapped in Doctor Who, then yes, this game will provide all the inside jokes and references that you could rightly expect. But getting to all of those jokes, it just may not be worth it.
In 1988, we started to see fully 3D polygonal graphics in games. In 1989, the industry was moving completely towards VGA graphics. Adventure games, such as King's Quest series, were becoming more popular, making the mouse a more useful and common object than ever. Computerized solitaire became popular in 1990 because Microsoft would bundle the game in with Windows 3.0, showing that everyone actually kind of likes video games. Video Toaster also became the cheapest computer-based editing system, influencing how games are made today. In 1991, ID Software produced an early first-person shooter called Hover Tank 3D. ID Software also developed Wolfenstein 3D in 1992. In 1993, Doom was released, and there was a breakthrough in 3D graphics.
So PC gaming is what really pushed the graphics industry.
Well, yeah. By 1996, Windows was popular, and 3D console gaming created the drive for hardware-accelerated 3D graphics. The faster graphics and improving PC tech allowed for increasing levels of realism. In 2000, Sims became the best-selling PC game ever, only later beaten by its successor, Sims 2. World of Warcraft was released in 2004, then we take a step back with the graphics to blocking-looking things in Minecraft 2009.
Virtual Legos.
Today, only a few companies develop for both Windows and Mac, such as Microsoft, Blizzard Entertainment, and Big Fish Games. In 2010, Valve made Steam available for OS X. The first game to be released simultaneously for Mac and Windows by Valve was Portal 2. They're helping to spread the love to Macs, which is awesome because Steam sales!
We love you, Steam.
And that's the very abbreviated version of PC gaming, because if I went any more in depth, we'd be here all day.
Look, we're running out of time here.
Time is relative.
Yeah, well, my relative's the AI.
And on that note, I'm gonna go do Comic Crash. I think I may have gained the power of teleportation for my trip to the moon. This is Comic Crash. You know, when it comes to comics, there's more than just the big two, DC and Marvel. In fact, some people, myself included, would argue that some of the independent companies come out with superior work, usually due to the far greater willingness to experiment and work way outside the box. I've already raved about most of the Image series I currently love, so today I'm going to tell you about some other works out there you should look into if you want to expand your comic horizons. For starters, here's an absolute classic out of what I would say is probably the next best independent company after Image, and that is Dark Horse Comics. I'm speaking, of course, about Hellboy, aka yet another role that nobody else but Ron Perlman could bring to life on the big screen. While in the manga industry it's rare for the author and artist to be two different people, it's pretty much the opposite in American comics. It's very rare to find a talented artist who's also a talented writer, or even a competent one. So Hellboy's creator Mike Mignola is practically a freaking unicorn of talent. He is a superb artist with a very unique and distinctive style. Plus, he's a fantastic author. In essence, he holds some of the greatest raw amount of talent in the industry. Hellboy itself can be a bit hard to follow as a regular reader, since the series is released as a slew of miniseries of various lengths here and there, but most of what's been published is collected in proper reading order in trade paperback form. The story follows the titular Hellboy, an agent of the BPRD, the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense. So the basic premise is a nice broad one that gives his adventures a general connected framework. Obviously, he's some sort of demon, his true name being Anung Unrama, which translates to, and upon his brow is set a crown of flame. Summoned to Earth in 1944 by crazy Nazi occult experts, but found and raised by members of the Allied forces. The odd bumps on his head come from him continually filing down his horns to minimize his demonic appearance, and his signature oversized stone hand is the right hand of doom, that various forces, most notably Grigory Rasputin and his crazy beard, seek to use to bring about Ragnarok via releasing unspeakable tentacled space gods, collectively known as the dragon Ogdru Jahad. In addition to the ongoing struggle against such forces, the series ropes in all sorts of figures from a variety of mythologies, ranging from the swamp witch Baba Yaga to King Arthur and the sword Excalibur, and the popular Conqueror Worm storyline. The series has spawned all manner of spin-offs, including a BPRD companion series and solo miniseries for fan-favorite characters like Lobster Johnson, who is in fact a ghost of a human vigilante and not a lobster. Hellboy is a deep, dark, melting pot of mythology and easily one of the tops in that whole kind of genre. I mean, I love Supernatural as much as the next guy, but he's got nothing on Hellboy and his drinking with skeletons. Next, I'd like to talk about something, well, very unusual, but a personal favorite of mine. I have no idea where the individual strips are published, except for recent ones online, but the collections are published by Fantagraphical Books. I mean, okay, this is presented in a format that suggests somewhere it is or was a newspaper comic, but it's still a comic medium, and trust me when I say this is no ordinary pun-laden generic strip worth a few giggles. Maquis is a dark comedy at some of its finest, with basically no major continuity. Your cast of alcoholics and suicidals are free to shoot themselves in the head and commit all sorts of heinous acts on each other without repercussion. I'll say this, it is not for everyone, for a variety of reasons, the first and foremost being the fact that it's got the depravity level of an Adult Swim show. In fact, there was a short-lived animated series based on it, running on Adult Swim, called The Drinky Crow Show. But the inspirational comic is far more absurd and irreverent than you could imagine. Some strips are entirely philosophical, others draw upon themes of various art styles through the ages. Some seem very obvious, but then end up being hilarious, even though you saw the joke coming. Others are almost depressing. But overall, it's one of the closest things to poetry I've seen in the industry. Somewhere between the dark humor and the existentialism is an odd balance that kept me captivated, even through some of the more offbeat pages. And I found myself finding many favorite standouts. If you have a taste for unusual and heavy dark comedy, you can check out new strips on Maquis.com for a sample, and then perhaps look into the collections, of which there are currently 8.
Well, while we're waiting for the cast to come back for this Doctor Who, whatever, we're gonna go to Good, Bad, and Random.
Good. The Christmas specials never get old or repetitive like some other series I could mention.
Bad is there's a lot of recurring villains that sometimes you just get tired of, and they're kind of generically evil.
Random. The show is chock full of cheesy effects, but the fans seem to love it, even ask for it.
Good. The series has a long history of prolific writers such as Neil Gaiman.
Another bad is you get used to these actors, and then they disappear, and you have to get used to somebody new again. What do you like somebody?
Random. Why hasn't Benedict Cumberbatch been a doctor yet? It's basically the same character he's playing in Sherlock, and he's got a huge fan base behind him already.
Good. The series has been around for over 50 years, and it's still relevant today.
And the series just tends to have a lot of lazy writing with, things like the sonic screwdriver and other various Deus Ex Machinas.
Exterminate!
Has it started yet?
No.
Have you seen Bill anywhere?
No.
Oh, man. Guess that means I have to do the philosophy of...
Looks like it.
So, I looked all over, but I still can't find Bill. Guess he missed the TARDIS. Oh well. Alonzi! So, anyone who's ever casually viewed Doctor Who will notice several things right from the start. First, the TARDIS is always a blue police box from 1960s England that somehow manages to camouflage in any time period or location in space. Second, it's Doctor, and not Doctor Who. And third, the Doctor doesn't look the same from season 1 to, well, now. But yet, he's the same character. How does this work? Well, it's actually quite simple. He's a Time Lord. See, Doctor? It's a part of a race called, you guessed it, the Time Lords. These are people who have been exposed to the time vortex of space, so in majorly simplified terms, they have the ability to time travel. Now, there are all the rules of time travel that they have to follow, like fixed points in time, no changing the past, don't let the angels take the phone booth. A whole bunch of stuff. We're not going to talk about it. As awesome as time travel is, and as cool as the Time Lords were, oh, I didn't mention that, did I? The Doctor is the last of the Time Lords. Again, we're not talking about that. Anyways, this is Philosophy of, and today we're talking about the philosophy of reincarnation as experienced by a Time Lord. Now, non-Whovians see the regenerations, that's the Time Lords call it, as a gimmick, a way to keep the show going after they lose their lead actor. Whovians see it as a soul-crushing experience that renders them incapacitated for months. Some of us still haven't gotten over David Tennant's departure, and now Matt Smith is leaving. Anywho, the point is that the regenerations are not necessarily just a gimmick. There's a philosophy behind them. You've heard of Buddha? Little round guy with all the great ideas? Yeah, him. Well, way long ago, the Buddha, and this is a really, really simplified and streamlined explanation, taught the concept of rebirth, as in rebirth of the soul. Are you starting to follow me? The Doctor dies and then is reborn. Yeah, see? But then why isn't he the same? Why is he always different? Buddha also taught that there is a conditioned relationship between one life and the next. In early Buddhist texts, it is made clear that there is no permanent consciousness that moves from life to life. Continuity doesn't exist in Buddha's reincarnation, but that it isn't to say everything changes. Just some things, important lessons that a soul learns are often passed on with them into their next life. So are some of the memories. I mean, how do you think they picked the Dalai Lama? When the Doctor is reborn, he goes through changes, most notably physically, however. His personality changes as well. The ninth Doctor, who started the reboot, was just coming out of the Time War. He was haggard, beaten down, and so horribly defeated because he was alone. The lesson he was forced to learn was how to be alone, something that was transferred over the 10th Doctor, who at one point chose to be alone to avoid pain. The 10th Doctor was much like a reserved child, one who wanted to be silly but still remembered last night's nightmare. The 10th Doctor was all about learning how to let go of fear, let go of pain, let go of life when his time came. The current and 11th Doctor builds on this, except in a different way. He is the most childlike of the reboot series, and throughout his span, he is learning to take on responsibility, to become something bigger than himself, and to care for others. What we're seeing is natural character progression done through multiple actors, which brings us right back to what Buddha was saying. We are reborn to experience. This is a very, very oversimplified explanation of reincarnation. The Doctor is constantly changing and evolving. Each of his new lives has its own lessons and experience to teach him, but he is a soul, always developing, and he's always running. There's lots and lots of running.
Oh my God. I finally understand everything now. I understand cats and dogs and the Doctor. It's the most amazing thing ever. I feel happy. Guys, we have to see this again.
Yeah, let's just hop on the TARDIS.
Awesome.
Where are we going?
Look, I have the fake British accent and the sonic screwdriver. I say we're going to the moon.
You're not the only one who can do fake accents.
But I want to go to the moon.
But this isn't the moon. That's the problem.
Are we on Mars?
Ooh, I want to stay on Mars. We can get some Oreos.
We're not staying on Mars and we're not going to the moon.
But Oreos.
We're supposed to be watching Doctor Who.
We can watch Doctor Who with Oreos.
Guys, I know how to get us home.
When you began all those years ago, sailing off to see the universe, did you ever think you'd become this? The man who can turn an army around at the mention of his name.
I got too big, Dorian, too noisy. Time to step back into the shadows.
Your real name is hidden. It burns in the stars, in the cascade of Medusa herself.
It's more than just a secret, isn't it?
If we knew his name, we might have a clue to all this.
Silence will fall when the question is asked.
You're a man with a long and dangerous past, but your future is infinitely more terrifying. The silence believe it must be averted.
What's so dangerous about my future?
On the fields of Trenzalore, at the fall of the 11th, when no living creature can speak falsely or fail to answer, a question will be asked. A question that must never, ever be answered. You can't run away from this.
I've been running all my life. Why should I stop?
Because now you know what's at stake, why your life must end. The silence are determined that the question will never be answered, that the Doctor will never reach Trenzalore.
I don't understand. What's it got to do with me?
The first question, the question that must never be answered, the oldest question in the universe, hidden in plain sight, the question you've been running from all your life.
Yes, but what is the question?
It's the same story every time, and it always begins with the same 2 words.
What 2 words?
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who? Doctor Who?
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who?
If we knew his name, we might have a clue to all this.